Emma Parker had always believed she understood her own heart. She worked as a community coordinator in a small coastal town in Oregon, and most people knew her as the calm, steady woman who could soothe any situation. Whether the town was dealing with power outages, storm warnings, or local disagreements, Emma was the one people searched for. She always showed up, always smiled, always kept things moving. But the truth she never admitted Devon to herself was that she carried more emotions than she let anyone see. And lately, those emotions were becoming harder to hide. Life had shifted the moment Liam Hart moved into the upstairs apartment above her. A quiet writer from Seattle, Liam came to Oregon to find peace and finish a long-delayed book. He had a gentle presence, the kind of calm that made people feel safe around him. He spoke with intention, choosing words like he was building something delicate. At first, Emma only noticed him in small ways, his soft greetings in the hallway, the sound of his typewriter late at night, the way he stood on the balcony reading while the ocean breeze pushed through his hair. It wasn't dramatic, but something about him lingered in her thoughts at the same time. Her longtime friend, Caleb Rivers, was becoming a bigger part of her life again. Caleb was the opposite of Liam, energetic, charming, loud in a way that didn't annoy but instead woke the room. He had known Emma since high school and had always cared about her more than he said out loud. When he returned after working 2 years in Denver, he stepped back into her life as if no time had passed. Caleb was the kind of person who said what others were scared to express. He pushed Emma to take breaks, to laugh, to stop taking on every burden in town. His confidence made her feel seen. But his sudden closeness stirred feelings she didn't understand. Emma didn't plan to feel anything for either of them. She didn't ask for the attention, didn't encourage it. But her heart reacted before she could control it. She found herself noticing the way Liam's eyes softened when he listened to her talk about her day, or the way Caleb walked beside her like he was always ready to protect her. She liked different things about both of them, and that scared her. She didn't want to disappoint anyone. She didn't want her emotions to ruin friendships. She didn't want anyone to misunderstand her. But wanting didn't stop feelings from growing. One cold evening, a sudden power outage shut down the entire town. The wind was strong, the streetlights flickered, and the colder air pushed people indoors. A group of locals gathered at Harbor Cafe, the only place with backup generators. Emma went there to help coordinate updates about the outage, but instead of finding chaos, she found something else entirely. Liam and Caleb sitting at a corner table. Waiting for her dot, Liam had a notebook in front of him, though he wasn't writing. He looked tired but peaceful, the kind of tired that meant he had been thinking too much again. Caleb leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers on the table in a steady, confident rhythm. When Emma walked in, both men looked up at her at the exact same time, and something inside her tightened, as if she had stepped into a moment that was already unfolding without her. "There you are," Caleb said with a grin. "We figured you'd end up here eventually." Liam nodded. "You always try to take care of everyone during power outages." Emma laughed softly, trying to brush off the way her stomach fluttered. "Someone has to." They invited her to sit, and she joined them, though she tried to hide the nervous heat spreading across her chest. The cafe was lit mostly by candles placed on the tables. The soft glow made everything feel warmer, closer. Shadows danced on the walls, and the quiet hum of people talking filled the room. But the three of them seemed to be in their own world. Caleb nudged her gently. "You've been working too much again. You need a break," Liam added. "You don't seem like yourself lately." Emma felt her heart stumble. She wasn't used to people noticing her so closely. She spent her whole life being the observer, not the one being observed. And now 2 men she cared about, though she didn't want to admit how deeply, were studying her with concern. "I'm fine," she said quickly, but both of them continued watching her, and she felt exposed. She didn't like lying, but how could she tell them what she truly felt? How could she explain that her emotions were tangled in ways she didn't understand? How could she say she felt pulled in 2 directions? Not because she wanted attention, but because she didn't know how to handle connection when it came from more than one place. Caleb leaned forward. "You don't have to pretend with us." Liam nodded, his voice quiet. We only asked because we care." Their words hit her harder than she expected. She tried to breathe, tried to steady her thoughts, but everything felt too close, too warm. She looked down at her hands, wishing she could hide her feelings somewhere safe. For months, she had carried this growing storm of emotion inside her: uncertainty, loneliness, attraction, confusion. She had pushed it down again and again, telling herself it was nothing. But sitting in front of the two people who unknowingly caused that storm made it impossible to pretend. The cafe lights suddenly flickered, not candlelight, but the overhead bulbs. The generator had restarted, humming loudly, and the room brightened instantly. The warm, hidden atmosphere disappeared, replaced by the sharper, clearer lighting of normal life. Emma blinked against the brightness, and something about the moment broke. Like the air between them had shifted away. Then the door swung open, the sound echoed through the cafe, and all three of them turned. A familiar voice called out, "Emma!" Nora, her coworker and closest friend, hurried inside. Nora was the one person who could read Emma without needing explanations. She walked straight to the table, her eyes full of worry and a hint of frustration. "I've been looking everywhere for you," Nora said. "Are you okay?" Caleb and Liam both straightened, sensing something tense in Nora's tone. Emma opened her mouth to speak. Nora reached out and gently touched Emma's arm. "You're carrying too much again. I can see it." The words were soft but firm, and they struck deeper than Emma expected. She felt exposed again, not by Liam or Caleb this time, but by someone who knew every version of her. Someone who had seen every moment Emma tried to hide. Nora didn't sit. She just gave Emma a long, meaningful look and said, "Take care of yourself tonight." Then she left as quickly as she had entered. Silence settled around the table after she walked out. It wasn't uncomfortable, but it was heavy, pressing on the edges of the moment like a reminder that Emma couldn't run from her own truth much longer. Caleb was the first to speak. "She's right. Something's going on with you." Liam watched her closely. "You don't have to say it if you're not ready, but you don't have to hide it either." Emma felt the pressure, the emotion, the confusion rise inside her. She wanted to speak, but the words felt stuck. The fear of hurting someone, disappointing someone, choosing wrong, all of it clung to her like a weight she didn't know how to set down. "I'm just overwhelmed," she said softly. "I'm trying to figure out what I feel." Both men grew still. Liam's voice came first, gentle but steady. "Whatever you feel. It's okay." Caleb's tone softened. "We're not here to push you." Their understanding made her heart ache. She didn't deserve this kind of patience. She didn't feel strong enough to choose anything yet. All she knew was that something inside her needed more than she had allowed herself to want. More connection, more honesty, more space to feel without fear. She lifted her eyes slowly, meeting Liam's calm gaze, then Caleb's warm one. They said nothing, but their expressions told her everything. They weren't judging her. They just wanted the truth. Emma took one breath, then another, I think. She began, her voice shaking. "I think I needed more than just one person to lean on." Both men's expressions shifted, not surprised, not angry, just understanding. And for the first time, Emma felt seen in a way she hadn't expected. By two people who cared for her more deeply than she had realized. But before anything else could be said, the cafe door opened again. This time wasn't Nora. It was someone connected to Emma's pasta face she hadn't seen in a long time. Her breath caught instantly, her heart freezing in her chest. Caleb noticed her reaction and sat up straight. Liam whispered, "Emma, what's wrong?" She couldn't answer. Her world had shifted in one moment. The night that had already tested her heart was about to change everything again. The familiar face that entered the cafe brought a sudden chill over Emma, one that had nothing to do with the autumn wind outside. It was Nora, her closest coworker, the one person who had always understood her better than she understood herself. Her arrival wasn't dramatic, but there was an intensity in her eyes that immediately unsettled Emma. It was a mixture of concern, expectation, and a silent warning that something urgent had arrived in her life. Emma's chest tightened, and she struggled to breathe normally, aware of the sudden shift in the room. Caleb noticed it first, leaning slightly forward, his brow furrowed with concern. Liam followed with a quiet curiosity, his calm demeanor unchanged but alert in that subtle, observing way he always had. Nora walked over without hesitation, her movements precise, purposeful, almost like she had been rehearsing this moment for hours. She stopped a few feet from their table and looked directly at Emma. "There you are. I've been looking for you everywhere," she said, her voice steady but threaded with an unmistakable urgency. Emma opened her mouth to respond but found no words immediately. The two men at her table watched silently, sensing that whatever was happening was beyond ordinary, beyond casual conversation. Emma's fingers twisted around the edge of her chair as her heart raced. She had not expected to be confronted tonight, especially not here, in this small cafe under flickering lights, where everything had felt temporarily safe and intimate. Nora didn't wait for Emma to reply. "Emma, I can see it in your face. You've been carrying too much," she continued, her tone firm but caring. "You can't handle everything alone. Not anymore." The words cut through the quiet hum of the cafe like a gentle, sharp knife, and Emma felt herself shrinking under their weight. It wasn't that she hadn't considered her own limits. It was that she had always pushed them aside, insisting she could handle more than anyone else could imagine. But Nora's gaze saw past the walls she had built, past the polite smiles, past the carefully maintained composure. She saw the exhaustion, the uncertainty, and the fear of being vulnerable that Emma had been trying to ignore for months. Caleb shifted slightly, his elbow brushing against the table. "She's right," he said quietly, and Emma turned her eyes toward him, startled. His usual teasing tone was gone, replaced by something softer, more serious. Liam nodded too, though his calmness remained. "You don't have to carry it all alone," he added gently. "Whatever's troubling you, you don't have to hide it from us." Their words, spoken together yet separately, made her heart tighten even more. She had known for weeks that both men cared deeply for her, but hearing them say it aloud, here, in front of someone else, brought a warmth that was almost unbearable. Emma lowered her gaze to her hands, fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve. She felt exposed in a way she hadn't intended, vulnerable but strangely relieved. I don't even know where to start," she whispered. "I've been trying to figure out my feelings, and it's complicated. More complicated than I thought it would be." She glanced up, meeting Caleb's earnest eyes first, then Liam's steady ones. "It's like I want to lean on more than one person, and I don't know if that's wrong, or selfish, or too much." Her voice trembled slightly, and for the first time in months, she allowed herself to acknowledge the truth she had been avoiding. She didn't just need comfort or support. She needed more than what she had allowed herself to admit. Her heart wanted connection in multiple forms, and it had become too heavy to hide. Caleb reached across the table, resting a reassuring hand near hers. "Emma," he said softly, "you don't have to apologize for feeling what you feel. It's not wrong. You're human. You've just been carrying everything by yourself for too long." Liam leaned in slightly, the faint light catching the thoughtful lines of his face. "We're not judging you. You don't have to choose perfection or simplicity. You just need to be honest with yourself first." Their patience, their understanding, it was almost suffocating in its intensity. But it wasn't unpleasant. It was the kind of warmth that healed, the kind that reminded her of everything she had been missing: genuine care, tension, and the space to be herself without masks. The cafe seemed to fade away for a moment. The soft candlelight flickered across their faces, casting gentle shadows, and for a brief time, the three of them and Emma existed in a quiet bubble, removed from the world, removed from expectations. She felt a mixture of relief and fear. Relief that she could finally admit what she had been feeling. Fear that admitting it might complicate everything she had tried to manage. Still, her hands relaxed slightly on the table, and her shoulders stopped their constant unconscious tension. "I think I've been scared to admit it," Emma continued, her voice steadier now. "I think I needed more than just one person, more than I realized. more than I've allowed myself to want." Her confession hung in the air, fragile yet powerful. Caleb's expression softened into a gentle smile, almost unrecognizable from his usual confident demeanor. Liam's calm eyes sparkled with understanding, his hand brushing the notebook he had been holding. There was no judgment, no confusion, only quiet acceptance and the patience of people who truly cared. For the first time in months, maybe years, Emma felt the weight on her chest lift, replaced by the possibility of being fully seen and understood. Just as the tension in her chest began to ease, her phone vibrated against the table. Caleb's attention shifted immediately when he saw it. His expression changed subtly from calm to concerned. He glanced at the screen, then looked at Emma with a seriousness that made her stomach twist. "Emma, it's about your family," he said quietly. "You need to see this." The sudden weight of his words crashed into her, stealing her moment of relief. The room that had felt safe just seconds ago now seemed charged, tense, filled with anticipation. Emma's breath caught, and she felt a chill run down her spine. Liam noticed the shift immediately. "What is it?" he asked softly. His voice was steady, but there was an edge of urgency that Emma had never heard from him before. Caleb handed her the phone, his fingers lingering slightly as if giving her space while also showing support. Emma hesitated, the screen illuminating her face with a pale glow. She didn't know what she would find. She didn't know if it would change everything. She didn't know if she was ready to face it. Yet some part of her knew she couldn't avoid it any longer. Taking a shaky breath, she unlocked the phone. The messages, the missed calls, and the notifications from her family stared back at her, urgent and unrelenting. She scanned them quickly, her heart pounding faster with every word. There was an accident, a sudden emergency, and multiple people were depending on her immediately. The calm evening she had hoped for evaporated instantly, replaced by an overwhelming sense of responsibility and fear. She felt her chest tighten, the way it always did when life demanded more than she thought she could give. Caleb reached over, placing a hand lightly on her arm. "We'll handle this together," he said. His reassurance wasn't just words. It was a promise that she wouldn't face this alone. Liam nodded, his quiet gaze steady and unwavering. "We're here for you," he added. "Whatever you need." Emma's throat tightened, tears threatening to spill, but she blinked them back. She realized something important in that moment. Life wasn't about carrying everything herself. It wasn't about keeping her heart locked up, afraid of complexity. It was about trusting those who cared, letting herself be supported, and allowing her emotions to be honest even if they were messy, even if they were complicated. She felt the warmth of their presence, a grounding force against the sudden storm. Emma realized she had been living too cautiously, afraid to acknowledge her needs and desires. But now she understood that vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was connection. It was the bridge to love, friendship, and trust. Both Liam and Caleb were ready to meet her halfway, to walk with her through uncertainty, to let her explore her emotions safely. And that realization brought a fragile but powerful sense of hope. Emma stood, gripping her phone with renewed determination. "I need to go," she said, her voice steady. She looked at Caleb and Liam, gratitude and affection shining in her eyes. "But I'm glad you're here, both of you." Caleb smiled warmly, squeezing her hand gently. Liam nodded, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. "We'll be waiting," he said simply. "Take care, Emma." She could feel their support wrapping around her like a protective shield, giving her strength she hadn't known she had as she moved toward the exit. Rain began tapping softly against the windows, rhythmic and calming. It was as if the world itself was acknowledging her courage, her honesty, her willingness to face the unexpected with support by her side. She stepped outside, the cool air hitting her face, and felt a strange mix of relief and apprehension. The night wasn't over. Challenges awaited her, decisions needed to be made, emotions had to be confronted. But for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel completely alone. The night had tested her heart, revealed her desires, and confronted her fears. But Emma had survived. She had admitted the truth to herself. She had allowed her emotions to breathe. And in that moment, walking through the softly falling rain, she realized that life messy, unpredictable, emotional was better when shared with those who genuinely cared. Liam and Caleb had shown her that connection could be patient,